Thank you for the round of applause. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you are tuning in from across the globe. A warm welcome to our online and in-person audience here at the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Welcome to the 2024 World Food Forum Private Sector Session titled Catalyzing Systemic Change, the Role of Private Sector in Youth Innovation. My name is Amanda Namai from Kenya, and it is my honor to be your host in this very special event today.
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. I am Abir Kharrat from Tunisia. I lead the Startup Innovation Awards at the World Food Forum Youth Innovation Lab. I'll be joining Amanda today in guiding you through this exciting event. At the World Food Forum Youth Innovation Lab, we firmly believe that transformative change in agri-food systems can only be achieved through cross-sector collaboration. Aligned with FAO's strategy for private sector engagement 2021-2025, we recognize the critical role of the private sector and youth as equal partners in driving this change.
That's right, Abir. And to give you all a quick outline of this session, we begin with opening remarks by FAO's Deputy Director General, Mr. Maurizio Martina, followed by our first panel discussion. This panel consists of 3 inspiring speakers from startups and organizations across different sectors who will present innovative entrepreneurial solutions that are transforming our agri-food systems. These organizations were handpicked by our youth innovation team to showcase their inspiring solutions.
After the first panel, we will hear a special keynote address from Mr. Martin Sonneveld, Executive Director of the World Food Systems Center and President of the Swiss National FAO Committee. This will be followed by the second panel discussion focused on the role of private sector in supporting youth-led innovation. Young members of the audience will be invited to ask questions and directly engage with our distinguished speakers from global agribusinesses. Without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage Deputy Director General, Mr. Maurizio Martina, to give the opening remarks. DDG Martina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. Good evening. It's a great pleasure to be here. Fortunately, my photo is missing because this is my cousin, not my son. Thank you for this opportunity and a few words with the aim of introduction this important session and this important discussion. And as we know, and as we discussion in the World Food Forum, make a clear message. The transformation of the agri-food system entails a profound change across the production, the storage, the consumption, and the disposal of food. And accordingly, to this year's State of Food Security and Nutrition of the World Report, over 700 million individuals were affected by food insecurity, even as we see immense waste of food and excess of production. And this disparity represents a crisis that demands our immediate action, attention, and the private sector is a fundamental place to guide many of the change needs. And its role is crucial, especially when it comes to supporting youth-led innovation. Let's keep in mind the essential role, in particular, of the new generation, the young entrepreneurs in particular, and the startups. In the Startup Innovation Awards that took place just before this session, we saw incredible youth-led startups that have the potential to change in the action the future of the food. And early this week, I exchanged, for example, with a delegation of Japanese startups led by young innovators. It was an incredible meeting. It was impressive by the result they achieved and their potential impact if scaled up and supported by partners. And the innovative ideas of youth must be integrated with the research and the capabilities of the private sector. We have to break the silos also when we speak about the generation, I think, because such collaboration are one of our greatest source of innovation. And they promote research and development and lead to adoption of new and vital solutions. It's crucial that we find ways to sustainably and responsibly work with the private sector to address current challenges, from providing growing population with affordable, accessible, and nutritious food, to tackling the impact of the climate change, biodiversity loss, and the other environmental concerns. And this session aims to explore in deep the role of the private sector can play in supporting innovation across agri-foods value chains in particular. Today's the first panel will showcase some brilliant startups that are already developing transformative solutions with the potential to scale up. The second panel includes agribusiness leaders who will demonstrate the types of actions they are pursuing to empower young innovators to contribute to the SDGs. And this session will also feature a discussion where we'll invite the younger members of our audience to ask questions to the panel of high-level agribusiness leaders. When youth are speaking with the private sector, conservation often feel top-down. But we hope to change this modality today in particular. And it's imperative that together we build bridge that not only connect young minds to opportunities, but also support them in scaling their solution globally. As we proceed with today's panel, let's keep in mind the transformative potential of partnership that place young innovators as protagonists of the change. And also for FIO, if I may, the partnership try to finalize a new way for the partnership with other entities, other state actors, other NGOs, other private sector entities is essential and will be essential. Together with your insight and commitment, we can catalyze a systemic transformation that ensures a future where good food is accessible to all for today and tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DDG Martina, for your insightful words. Now, please join me in welcoming Mr. Carlos Watson, Chief of Partnership and UN Collaboration at FAO. Mr. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Abir. Good afternoon to all of you. Hello? Yeah. Thank you very much, Abir. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm delighted to moderate this first panel along with Abir today. My name is Carlos Watson, and I am the Chief of the Private Sector Engagement in FAO, and I'm a part of the Partnership and UN Collaboration Division here in headquarters. Today, we will focus a crucial role of the private sector in fostering innovation and how we can drive meaningful change in this area. At FAO, my team is dedicated to connecting FAO's all across FAO with businesses, investors, and young entrepreneurs. We believe that investing in youth-led projects is not only beneficial for our communities, but also a smart business decision. Young innovators bring fresh ideas to agriculture. By providing with necessary resources, we can significantly enhance food security. We are convinced of that. The private sector holds a vital voice in shaping policies. That is our responsibility to use that voice to advocate initiatives that empower young people in agriculture. By collaborating with governments and various organizations, we can create an environment that encourages participation and fosters innovation. We engage with young innovators. As we do that, we must recognize that the future of our food systems is heavily relying on ideas, the energy, and the passion of the generation. This presents us with a unique opportunity to unlock their potential through strategic partnerships, investments, and mentorships. Addressing complexities of food systems require a collaborative approach. The private sector can play an essential role in knowledge-sharing initiatives that facilitate meaningful dialogue between youth and industry leaders. Let us also remember that the actions that we take today will shape the future of food systems for generations to come. By catalyzing systematic change and actively supporting our youth innovation, we can work together to create more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive world. Abir?
Thank you, Carlos, for giving us this context. At the Youth Innovation Lab, this is exactly what we are trying to do and we are looking for, to encourage diverse partnerships by providing the network, knowledge, and resources necessary for the young innovators to develop and scale their projects. To inspire you and to give you more insights into some cutting-edge projects, I would like to introduce for you our first panelist. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Valentina Primou, CEO and founder of Startup Without Borders. Please. Thank you. Second, Mr. Victor Poncelet, CEO and founder of Westec. Mr. Victor, the floor is yours. And Mr. Amr Al-Abd, Regional Managing Director of Endeavor Egypt. Thank you. Please. All right. To kick off things, please introduce yourself, your company, and the work that you are doing. Let's start with you, Valentina.
Thank you. My name is Valentina Primou. I am the founder and CEO of Startups Without Borders. And the way we describe ourselves, we're driven by the mission to support entrepreneurs no matter where they come from. We always say that talent doesn't have a passport. And since we started in 2018 back in Egypt, in Cairo, we have trained 7,800 entrepreneurs across 15 different countries in Africa, Middle East, and Europe, with this idea to connect founders with the right resources, with mentorship, and with funding opportunities. We see ourselves as an ecosystem builder, right? So we run different events. Our Startups Without Borders Summit is one of the largest summits in the Middle East with 5,000 people attending. And we work both connecting the corporate sector, the private sector, governments, and of course, United Nations and international organizations as well.
Thank you, Valentina. Mr. Amr?
Good evening, everyone. First, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm delighted and honored to be with you here today. My name is Amr Al-Abd. I'm the regional CEO of Endeavor Middle East and Africa. So to give you a perspective of Endeavor, Endeavor started as an organization to build entrepreneurship ecosystems across the world. 27 years ago, entrepreneurship was predominantly a US phenomenon. And we believe that startups, innovation happens across the world. Today, Endeavor is present in 45 countries with the aim of going to 100 countries across the world in the next decade. We support 1,600 companies that generate $70 billion of revenue annually, with a combined valuation average globally about $500 billion US. This is the impact. When we look at Africa, our startups last year, or scale-ups as we like to call them, have raised about 50% of all VC funding that was invested in Africa went to Endeavor companies. 67 of our global companies raised $4.5 billion last year. So in terms of job creation, we've created 4.1 million jobs across the world. What we do is we do 4 things to support the startups that join the network. First, we have a very rigorous process of selecting them, but once they join the network, we provide them with access to capital, which is through our fund. We have a $500 million fund that co-invests, but also we introduce them to a lot of the global investors that would invest in these sectors. Second is the mentorship, and we have about 4,000 global mentors in our network covering all types of expertise, all types of industry. Third, we have leadership program specifically designed for our entrepreneurs with Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and INSEAD. Lastly, we are a network. So 2,600 entrepreneurs learn and collaborate from one another. What we want to see is we want to see entrepreneurs not fall in the same mistakes that others have done, so they can learn from one another. We want to turbocharge and accelerate their growth. When we select companies, we look for companies that will reach a minimum of $100 million. If they can't demonstrate that they have that potential, then they're sort of not what we call Endeavor fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Amr. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I'm co-founder and CEO of WasteTech. WasteTech is a company that was founded approximately 3 years ago, so I think we are a bit the young ones in the room. So yeah, what is the basis of WasteTech? WasteTech was created actually to try and mimic nature in the fact of upcycling local nutrients through insect farming. What we do is we use organic wastes and transform them into stabilized products for the agricultural sector. So yeah, basically that's how we try and mimic nature and try to capture what nature does best and put it into our production and consumption habits. So that's the whole idea and philosophy of WasteTech, and that is why we are a very partnership-orientated philosophy, because we believe that, well, we don't exist without waste providers, and we don't exist without our clients, farmers, and so on. So we try to build ecosystemic collaborations where everyone involved finds its purpose in an idea that 1 + 1 = 4. I think it's a bit, you've heard that before, but it's the idea.
Thank you, Victor. Carlos, the next question.
So let me maybe direct the first question to Valentina, right? You work with a diverse range of startup projects. How do you see diversity in entrepreneurial approaches contributing to innovation and transformation in global agri-food systems?
Thank you. Yes, as you said very rightfully, we work with diversity in terms of where they come from. So a lot of the entrepreneurs in our network are refugees. A lot of entrepreneurs in our network are migrants. We know that the trend is growing. And it's funny because oftentimes when people hear what we do, they think, oh, you are a nonprofit supporting the most vulnerable, right? And they forget that migrants and refugees are not just job seekers, they're job creators, they're innovators, and they have entrepreneurship in their DNA. And throughout our programs, our incubation programs, and our events, our acceleration programs, what we see is that grit, that drive, and that passion to not only restart their lives, but also restart new businesses and take that risk, right? So they're intrinsically entrepreneurial. And if we look at the statistics, 51% of startups, of unicorns, right, valued at $1 billion or more, in Silicon Valley were founded by an immigrant, right? So when we look at the most, as Amr was saying before, right? Like startup phenomenon used to be a US phenomenon because this is where most startups and venture capital is. But if we look at that, migration and migrant entrepreneurs are deeply ingrained in that fabric, right? So the startups that we have supported, which include both local migrants and refugees as entrepreneurs, we have seen incredible innovations in the agri-food sector. We also need to consider that there is a link, right, that hasn't been explored yet between heritage in terms of traditions and food resilience, right, food security. And this is a very interesting link. And we are starting to see that when we look at the innovations that are coming from the agri-tech and agri-food sector, how they start to contaminate different regions. So, back to your question, I think diversity is essential when it comes to innovating across different industries, but in agri-food, there's a very interesting link to explore there.
Agricultural heritage is big.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let me now direct a question to you, Amr. Could you share with us how your network, mentorship programs, and funding initiatives have enable these startups to scale up impact and contribute to the transformation of agri-food systems worldwide? Amir?
Thank you, Carlos. I think, first, let me tell you, I loved your presentation of how you said innovation is coming and how international organizations are collaborating with the private sector to drive that innovation. Agri-tech is not a huge part of our portfolio, but it's an important and growing part. So when we look at our portfolio, we have about 31 companies globally divided across 4 continents. One of them is a unicorn or $1 billion company, and it's in a sector that is not known to create unicorns globally, which is called e-fishery. It's in Indonesia. We have other companies across Africa, Twiga, we have Muzera in Egypt. So a lot of the big companies that you would hear about are ours. We've supported them with, I think, 3 very important elements. One is the mentorship. So the mentorship they give them, it's both technical expertise because of a diversity of the mentors we have, but it's also business, financial, and market access. So if a company is, for example, is in Indonesia and they want to expand to, let's say, Nigeria or Kenya or Latin America, because we have teams on the ground, we can facilitate that introduction. To give you a number, we've done to these 31 companies over 750 mentorship sessions. Second is access to capital. We've invested through our fund, which is a co-investment fund. We don't invest large amounts. We invest up to $2 million per each startup only. These startups have raised over $1 billion, and they create a revenue of about $1 billion annually. But we have done over 150 introductions to investors globally. So that's another element, and the international market access.
Thank you, Amr. My following question is for Victor. Could you tell us what were your biggest challenges in scaling up your startups? You have heard like the solutions, the networking, the opportunities that they are offered by different support structures, globally and locally. Can you share your perspective from the European market? How did you manage to scale your startup?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, before having something to scale, you actually need to find that thing to scale. Because whenever you start a startup, I mean, it's our experience. We have a vision, we have an idea, it's great. But along the way, that vision, I mean, the vision needs to stay the same, but the ways to go towards that vision are going to change because you have some hypotheses, you have some assumptions, and you challenge them with your future clients, your future partners, and actually you discover that things change. This wasn't the initial way of thinking wasn't necessarily the right one to get towards your vision. So there's a lot of work before arriving to the scale-up phase and to be, okay, now we have an economical model, we have a technological model as well, that can be scaled and duplicated. So that was a big part of our challenges, was to arrive to that point. Of course, bringing from startup to scale-up has a lot of challenges as well. Once you start getting into higher volumes, especially in what we do. I mean, it's great technologically wise, everything is perfect at low scale, but once you get to high scale, you have some tough challenges, and for sure you need iterations to make sure that that everything is ready to be run on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, that's the big challenges, and of course you need to prove that your first scale-up project, in our case, some sort of mid-scale hub where we find very local waste providers and find very local as well food and feed actors that are interested in our insect products for their animals, but as well our fertilizer for their food crops and so on. It's to validate that first mid-scale hub. That is a challenge. We are actually working on it right now, and yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Luckily, you are welcomed by two support structures that can provide you with solutions for these opportunities.
Not going to say no to that.
And finally, the panel went too fast. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest trends and opportunities in innovation in agri-food systems, and how can your project or your organization can benefit from such trends and opportunities? Feel free, whoever wants to start.
Okay, I'll start. We're seeing a lot of trends in terms of food waste that are very interesting and that concern not only the issue of food waste, but also food security, right? Because as we said, in the field that concerns us a lot at Startups Without Borders, which is migration and the refugee crisis, we see food security as a big element, right? So we have been seeing very interesting innovations, startups, from the early stages to very prominent scale-ups now, that are really, from turning cow manure into biofuel or renewable energy sources and so on, to managing their farmlands through different applications to monitor the cow's health. So there's various different, talking about waste, right? There's very different innovations that we're seeing that not only have an impact in terms of, food waste, but also in a larger scale of things. I'll leave it to.
So I'll tackle that question from a different sort of macro perspective. And what we're seeing sort of three distinct opportunities or trends. One is the convergence of three different types of technologies that will have a transformational effect on the next decade. So the next decade, we're going to see the decade where most innovation is happening, disruption to traditional industry is happening at a speed and scale that has never been witnessed before in history. And I think it's driven by three distinct technologies. One is artificial intelligence. Two is quantum computing, and the speed and the power and the effect it will have coupled with artificial intelligence. Third is blockchain. So I think these three distinct technologies will come together, and it will fuel innovation massively in biotech, which will have a huge impact on agriculture, fighting hunger, reducing poverty, weather resilience, climate resilience. Second element, and I'm very happy to hear it today that Carlos had mentioned, is that international organizations and governments started looking about partnering with the private sector to drive this issue forward. Innovation needs capital to be driven forward. We need media attention. Currently, this sector is starting to get a little bit more capital, but it's not sufficient for its growth. We need to drive and to create a mechanism, hopefully a digital mechanism, that will make it easy, transparent, and accessible for individuals and institutions to invest in these companies. Because this is what's needed, because this capital will drive growth. But it's not any type of capital. At Endeavor, we always want smart, connected capital. It's dollars, it's money, but it's money that will come with knowledge, with expertise, and with connection. a dollar with this 3 connections, with connection and expertise, is much more valuable than just a simple dollars, because the expertise and the connections is critical. And I think the third is media. We need to showcase and to highlight the success stories that are happening. We always talk about the multiplier effect. When in any ecosystem or in any country when you have a company that reaches a certain size and scale, there usually four layers of multiplier effect. Employees leave to start other businesses. The entrepreneur starts investing in other businesses. The entrepreneur has a lot of capacity and knowledge to mentor others. But the fourth is critical, which is to inspire new generation of believing that they can do it. And we see that across the world. In different countries. The region where I come from, we had a company called Kareem that was acquired by Uber, which is a ride-hailing company, for $3 billion. Out of that company alone, 124 of the large companies right now in the Middle East came out of this company. So we see that multiplier effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you.
If I can add something to that, I think you talked about it a little bit, but like we can feel as well that more and more there's people wanting to find systemic solutions where you don't have only standalone solutions that are going to work and scale. The whole idea, and that benefits us quite well because we're really into that partnership-based philosophy. And we see it like innovation centers approaching our company because they know that one way of producing food is going to originate some waste. We can be part of that chain and really create some sort of resilient and ecosystemic models that are systemic and resilient on a local scale. So that what I would say is the trend and the opportunities that we seek. And we are very interested in designing and dimensioning these possible models, and that's mostly what we do right now is to duplicate our hubs towards these systemic models that we seek.
Well, thank you.
Well, this is exciting, really, guys, to hear you, because definitely the world basically is in the hands of innovation. In the next 25 years, we're going to have over 2 billion people, additional 2 billion people in the world, and the natural resources are not going to increase. If anything, they will decrease. So we have to learn to make the best use of what we have. So we have to produce more with less, and that is done through innovation, seed technology, and all the things that you mentioned. So this is exciting. This is why FAO has placed innovation in the core of our business model from now on to achieve our 4 betters, and private sector is a driver of that innovation. So I'm very happy and very glad to hear your presentations, and I think too we are all in the right boat. Okay, so before I pass the floor to a friend, I would say, because we have already been discussing some potential collaboration that is taking form now. Just let me get my glasses because I have to. Yes, again, thank you very much to all of you from the startups. All these first panels, I said, is very exciting to hear. Before we move to the second part of the session, I am delighted to have with us Dr. Martin Stoneveld. He is the Executive Director of the World Food Systems Center, the President of the Swiss National FAO Committee, and serves on the board of the Swiss Food and Nutrition Valley, which we recently signed a letter of intent in August. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear panelists. We can leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. It's a great honor to be here today. I was already here yesterday, and to learn, get inspired. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my perspective on private sector collaboration with you. Although probably on the first sight, I'm the wrong one to talk about. I'm not young, and I'm not working for private sector.
But maybe you allow me 5 minutes to nevertheless share a few thoughts. When I saw or hear what I was asked to talk about, it's putting young at the center of systemic change, and I saw the agenda, I had a picture in mind, a picture of a bridge. And for obvious reason, I play now a bit the bridge between two panels, but also in my role in academia, I'm a bridge between young people and probably more established actors in the sector. I'm trying, together with my team, build a bridge between academia and society. That includes private sector, that includes startups, that includes farmers, but also policymakers. And here, maybe as a bridge builder, allow me to share a few thoughts. We at the World Food System Center, and sometimes the name is a bit bold, coming from a university in Switzerland, a very tiny country, and then building up a competence center around food systems and calling it World Food System Center. It's a bit bold, but I guess it shows a bit our vision to contribute to a healthy world through sustainable food systems. And that not ends at borders. You pointed out very rightly, and you have it even in your name, we should think across borders. Borders which are given by our environment, by industry rules, by academic rules, but also by the rules how farmers were developing their business over years. And we try to bring different perspectives together. At our university, we have 500 professorships, research groups. And in our competence center, we pool around 50 of them, and they are all working in one way or another at the agri-food system, either on climate issues or issues related to environment. Of course, we have people working on agricultural and food sciences, the classic and traditional disciplines, but also other groups from architecture, consumer behavior, or even people working on AI and new technologies do contribute with their perspectives to more the systemic understanding of our challenges or of the challenges the food system face. And we try to be a bit a glue between these elements. We try to build bridges between different disciplines, come up with research programs where researchers need to collaborate on certain aspects. One requirement of our programs is that at least 2 research groups come up with one project. And often these programs are funded by private sector. So there is another component of collaboration with private sector or building bridges in order to allow for research results to come into application and be one pillar of that bridge between science and innovation and then the application on the ground. We can't do the application ourselves, but we need to build a trustful relationship with all partners outside academia in order to then also speed up cool ideas, new ideas, make collaboration happening. And thirdly, our role, maybe the most important role of academia in private sector engagement is through education, through educating young people to be the new leaders of the world, to be the new leaders in industry, to be smart policymakers, and to be the cool and innovative scientists we desperately need. So that's a bit our role, trying to build bridges. But if you look at, okay, take that youth dimension, then I think also of a bridge in more in a time dimension. So we stand on a bridge, we can look in 2 sides. We can look back, and from the status the food system is today, we desperately need people to have a fresh eye on the failures, but also on the successes from the past and learn from these experiences, challenge the current models, and try then to turn around and look into the future to create new, probably more, as Victor pointed out, more systemic models, more systemic business models too, in order to then also allow for this more systemic perspective on how do we deal with challenges and how do we tackle problems, and are we ready to also think of maybe the more hidden consequences these solutions might have. And then thirdly, sorry, I'm overusing maybe a bit the picture of the bridge. It's also bridging between silos. And that we have heard, so I don't need to talk too much about it, but that's key. We need to educate people who are able to jump between different sectors, who understand the need of industry, who understand also how academia works. So sometimes I'm struggling with translating between scientists and private sector representatives. They might talk the same language, or they might use the same words, but they don't talk often the same language. Time dimensions are different if you compare to a startup or an industry player. You need to solve the problem of today already yesterday, while academia sometimes tries to solve problems in 20 years in a much longer time span. So that's challenging. And to try to facilitate this breaking up silos, I guess the Swiss Food Nutrition Valley mentioned by Carlos is one example how we try to go about it. It's pooling, bringing all relevant actors within it, and it's easier in a tiny country, I admit, but bringing those actors together, private sector, big cooperatives, small and medium-sized enterprises, startups, academia, the public sector. It's organized in Switzerland at the provincial level, so often you have also kind of economic support at these levels. And they all together we try to build up a fruitful environment for collaboration and for co-development of solutions. And that's not an easy task. You will face a lot of challenges in terms of competition, in terms of different languages people speak, but it's an experience where we all can learn. And it's a super good opportunity also to open up for a cross-generational collaboration, because we have young scientists pitching their ideas, we have startups bringing in their views, and we have billion-worth companies meeting each other and trying to find a common ground. When I talked to a young colleague of mine and telling her that I will be here today, we discussed a bit, and she came up with 2 points what I should try to bring in this little speech. And there are 2 words. It's urgency and optimism. I guess the urgency is clear. Huh? The world is in a state where we really need to find immediate good solutions. But we also have the chance that there is more in common than what divides us. And that's a bit an empty word maybe. But on the other hand, if we try to bring these different perspectives together, if we start to include a systemic understanding of how are we going to tackle food system challenges, if we get inspirational examples from startups which really take up this systemic challenge and try to solve it, and if you're open enough to get over dogmatic discussions, which sometimes also in a policy field do hinder real progress, and if we are ready to rethink how we go about the transformation, rethink the way we educate people, not only on academic level, but also in practical education, if we rethink business models, and if we rethink the way power is distributed, and you mentioned it a bit in your answer when you were talking about the role of refugees in driving change. So if we manage to do this, and we only manage if we include this, or if we get into a state where we have an you know what I mean. I don't try it again. But really collaborate across generations. And not only, this event is nice, this event is important, but it should not be an event. We should actually interweave these different generations from education through the way how we collaborate across the sector. There are so many promising ideas around. There are so many cool models being developed. Let's move them, bring them all forward. I'm very happy to see that there are venture capitalists which try to scale up, and please continue to challenge your own colleagues day by day. Are we still on track? Are we really getting to a transformation which requires also a transformation of how we see this the collaboration across generations. Thank you very much for having me here.
Indeed, the clarion call are in two succinct messages, urgency and optimism. Could we say it again? Urgency and? Thank you so much, Dr. Martin, for your remarks and for your call to action to the young people everywhere to actively engage in creating systemic change, both within and outside the private sector, to transform our global agri-food systems. And now it is time to move on to the second panel, and this panel will explore how the private sector can support youth-led innovations to advance sustainability in agri-food systems. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Deputy Director General of FAO, Ms. Beth Bechtel, who will be moderating this insightful panel discussion. A round of applause for Ms. Beth.
Thanks very much. And Martin, I think you were a perfect bridge between these two panels. And the focus on the cross or intergenerational topic, I got it. I practiced actually in my head to make sure I would get it correct. I will say your context though about the bridge between the young, and I like the way you said established. I think that's code for old, older, which I think many of us who are here as a part of the program probably feel like we are, because I'm looking out into the audience and seeing a number of those young faces. And that's what I hope in this next panel we can really bring to a discussion and a dialogue. As you heard, we're going to pivot a bit from just private sector engagement and their focus on ag tech and ag innovation, but to now blending private sector with youth action. And really, how can the private sector better support youth-led innovation to really achieve, as we're here at this very forum, to focus on a better food future for all? And this is something that I believe here in this forum, we are really trying to connect, as you see even from the slide here. It's young people bringing ideas about science and innovation, and also then all of us collectively finding ways to make better investments in them. And I do hope that each of you here in the audience, as you listen to the first set of comments from the panel members, who I will invite up here in just one moment, that you really start thinking about some questions for them, and difficult questions for them, probing, challenging questions for them. That's what they're here to be a part of, is an exchange and a dialogue with many of you who are in the room. So without further ado, I would like to bring up on stage our esteemed panelists. I will introduce them one at a time and ask them to come up and join me. First, please welcome Martin Kropp, Regional President of ADM Africa. Martin, thank you. Next is Sharon Chitoni, founder and CEO of Edible Planet Ventures. Thank you. We also are joined by Mario Cerruti, Chief of Institutional Relations and Sustainability at Lavazza. Thank you, Mario. And finally, Paula Lopez Vargas, Lead of Partnerships for Latin America and the Caribbean from Acorn Rabobank. I think we have microphones that we can pass and we can share as we go through the discussion. Let's go ahead and jump right in. And the opening, what I would, I guess, ask of each of you is to first maybe, of course, introduce yourself. A bit brief, given the time that we have. But a very short introduction of your organization, your role, and first maybe point, why do you think it is important that we work directly with young people to create this focus on sustainable agri-food systems? And maybe then a bit on how does your organization actually support that mission? And Martin, because you're sitting here to the left, you get to go first.
Thank you, Beth. Thanks a lot for having us here. And so you ask who I am. So my name is Martin Kropp. I have been working for this company, Archer Daniels Midland, for quite a while, 3 decades in the meantime. And what I'll do now, after all kind of assignments around the globe, I'm basically responsible for our business in Africa. What do? We basically buy agricultural products from farmers, we transport them, we bring them to our 750 processing facilities around the world. We process goods and then we sell these goods here, mainly to business partners. So we are essentially a B2B business. You will not necessarily know us on end products. So that's a bit what we do. In terms of your question, innovation, youth, how do we look at that? Just as a kind of something that I'm dealing with, and we're all dealing with. You mentioned 2 billion more people. That topic in itself, I think, is massively underestimated in whatever we do. Why? Because these 2 billion are coming mainly in Africa. So we're adding 2 billion people in Africa. And this is a continent where we have already issues, significant issues. And that coupled with GDP creates significant food security issues. In the 60s, there was no import in Africa. Africa was able actually to feed itself. Today, Africa has an import dependency on 40%. And what we discuss, and this is something that I'm also asking in terms of innovations, is mainly on the output side. We never talk about the import side. The fact is that import gap is increasing year by year, and it is denied, from my perspective, in the public discussion, because we're only talking about the input side, agricultural output, and fair enough. And let me just, 3 topics, because we saw the innovations. So water, super important, only 10% irrigated. So we saw this solar pump topic. Then mycotoxin, yeah, massive in terms of losses. And when you look at all these issues that we're facing, we saw wonderful ideas this morning. We need them to sort out this issue that we are going to face in Africa in the coming years. Thank you.
Sure. Let me ask a very quick follow-up. Are you making investments in these types of youth-oriented startups? Has ADM moved into actual engagement or support of maybe some of the types of companies that you saw here this afternoon?
Yes, we do. We have a venture arm that is investing specifically in those kind of businesses. All these investments that we're doing on the venture side are related to our existing business. So one way or the other, they need to be adjacent or supportive. Or we heard, this earlier on, that there is an issue that the business related folks in big corporations are not participating very often because the venture arm is independent. Our venture arm is also independent, but no decision is done without consulting with the business unit. So everything that we do is business related and relevant for us in terms of sorting out issues that are at stake.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to turn, you can pass the microphone maybe down the row here, and next to Sharon. Sharon, same sort of overview questions to you, focus on the business, the organization, engagement with youth, but looking forward to hearing about Edible Planet Ventures.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. So we do several things, and in some ways, we take a little bit of different things from the folks we heard from before. So our motto is sort of connect, transform, inspire. So starting with the inspiration, we are building sort of a media really to talk about and champion these wonderful startups, these incredible innovations. How do we support them? How do we help them with funding? How do we really champion what's out there? But that's not enough. How do we build the infrastructure? So that's sort of step two. And we work with these startups in many different ways. And we work with the private sector, with corporates. So we really try to pilot those solutions within their processes, or try to, help them expand and, do expansions in different geographies. And then the last bit, it's something that we're launching now, which is more an ecosystem platform to truly break down those silos and have the private sector and the public sector and the financial sector work together to look at where are the challenges. And instead of being a think tank, we call ourselves a doers tank. So together as an ecosystem to truly try to solve those gaps wherever they may be. So that's something that we are launching now. So we work a lot with young entrepreneurs. We also do programs for, I personally teach a master's course, so love young people. And it's fundamental. It's also like looking at those conversations, I think, of sectors that are in some way fragmented. And if we look at sort of for example, like sort of deep tech in terms of cultivated meat and farmers, how do we get those conversations? How do we get people together to learn about each other and not feel threatened by each other? So that's very important for us.
Thanks very much. Next up, Mario, it would be great to, again, get a little bit of an overview, your role, the background and the work of Lavazza, and how specifically you too work to engage and maybe empower young people in the work that you do.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, my name is Mario Cerutti. My role in Lavazza is Director of Sustainability and also Secretary of the Lavazza Foundation. If somebody is interested in the detail, please go in the web, and I really don't want to waste a precious moment here to tell what we do, etc. Because what I'm much more interested in is really to share with you some of the characteristics of the coffee market, and we are mainly talking about the production. So on the production side, which is all the coffee in the world is coming on the tropical belt, also called the coffee belt, and so as you can imagine, there are some countries that have some problems, but also a lot of opportunities. Today in coffee, I would say there are two major, enormous challenges. One are collectively the effects of the climate change. This is dramatic. There are a lot of estimation of 1 million of people that have to move. One of the most accredited estimation is that in 2050, about 50% of the current land where the coffee is produced will not be suitable for coffee production anymore, meaning that, to say the least, the people will have to change production. And of course, we would not be so happy, and all the coffee drinkers in the world as well. But many of the people will have to move, will have to find other type of land. Perhaps, unfortunately, they will end to destroy forest to plant coffee and other stuff, etc., etc. So this is one of the enormous change. Pests and diseases. Due to climate change, there are pests that 20 years ago were there, but were basically almost not existing, very small occurrences, etc., etc. Now it's, of course, completely different. But the other very big challenge, and we are coming to us, is really the youth engagement. So when we look at the youth, it's not only, let's say, from an investment point of view, which is, of course, a very important one, but I would say more an involvement point of view. We need to find ways to involve young people in the production. Okay, I'm talking about coffee because this is what I know a little bit, but I suspect there are many other products in the same condition. Today, it is estimated that in the world, the average age of a coffee grower is 54 years. And 54, be careful, not in Sardinia or Japan where people live 100 years. 54 in places where you are very close to the end of your, or approaching to a period where you maybe want or should rest. So the question is really important, how we can create the condition or facilitate the condition for the young generation, for the young people to get involved in coffee production and to make the good living out of coffee production. And this is a very big challenge. Part of the issue is through innovation, technology. This is an advantage for the young because most of the parents, they don't really know how to use cell phone, etc., etc. And today there are an enormous, let's say, availability of technology for the coffee growers through internet and other systems. So it's very important that the young generation are helped to take this role and then, of course, to improve it. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And Maria, you touched on a point that was in sort of my back pocket for a follow-up question to everyone, which is this focus on how do we make sure that the next generation of agricultural producers, whether it's coffee, livestock, fisheries, aquaculture, crops. So maybe we'll come back on that and ask some of the other panel members. But let me go ahead and turn next to Paola from Rabobank to, again, introduce a little bit about the institution and, again, your engagement and work in collaborating with young people. Over to you.
Great. Thanks for the invite. I am indeed working at the Rabobank Group, a Dutch cooperative bank, and within the innovation department, there is a program called ACORN. I am the partnerships lead of ACORN for Latin America. And what we do at ACORN is basically support and empower farmers in transitioning, improving agroforestry systems. We believe agroforestry is a great strategy to combat climate change, adapt to the effects of climate change, to avoid what Mario was explaining about coffee yields and basically moving towards other land where deforestation can be involved. Because we believe that agroforestry might bring a lot of benefits, not only for nature, but also for livelihoods. We focus on smallholder farmers who are transitioning to agroforestry. We don't do this ourselves. We have 60 people, very passionate. We are driven for a purpose, and our purpose is really making sure that farmers can do this transition and can access to the voluntary carbon market, a market that is not built to be accessed by smallholder farmers. Why? Because usually the business model is not good enough for them to access. And what we are doing at ACORN is basically creating a framework to certify those projects, basically just build in their own realities, meaning that what we do is we understand that farmers might not have documents for land tenure all the time, therefore we are making it more flexible for them to access. We are using technology, we are using artificial intelligence, remote sensing data, we are training, we have a big team of data scientists, also very young, trying to implement those models and making sure that we use technology to drop the cost of monitoring the carbon outputs. And what we are doing is basically, as a bank, we are connecting all the corporates that are working with the bank in the idea of offsetting their emissions, especially the unavoidable ones. And I'm very happy to see Mario here, because Mario and Lavazza is one of our partners in most of the projects that we are currently developing. And this really is an evidence on how the private sector is actually moving towards supporting those farmers in their efforts of planting more trees, hopefully getting additional sources of income if they produce some other fruits, and keeping their own livelihoods by maintaining their coffee, their cocoa, or any other crop that they're mainly producing. Our team is very diverse in terms of cultures. I am Colombian. Most of my colleagues either speak many languages or they are from different backgrounds, which is also help us to build those partnerships and implement those projects on the ground.
Great, thank you very much. So we have about 10 minutes before we need to probably wrap up this session. I know it has been quite another long day at the World Food Forum, so I can imagine people are maybe feeling a little bit tired, but we have an outstanding group of individuals here on stage, and so I'm going to try to see beneath the lights and hope that there's somebody out there or some of you who might have a question that we could pose to any particular member of our panel, or something that's maybe overarching to all of them. Somebody want to raise their hand in the room? Do you have one in the back? Can we, I see, okay, I see a hand. Can we get a microphone is that possible? There's one coming. And can you stand and introduce yourself, please, before the question?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Julia, and I'm a student in Wageningen University. I have a question for Dr. Marta, but I see that, I think that was the previous session.
He's our keynote sitting down in the front.
Can I still ask you the question?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you.
We'll invite him to come up.
Yeah. So you mentioned looking towards the future through systemic change, and I was wondering if you had a particular vision for this, or what exactly you meant by systemic change. And maybe we can open up this question to the other panelists as well, because I do think it is an interesting, narrative to talk about.
Great. Maybe because it was Martin's phrase, we could let Martin try to respond. You can please come join us. You can stand at the podium, and then maybe to your response, we can open that up to some of the panel members.
Thank you for this question. It's indeed, I'm afraid I don't have a 30-second answer to it. And it's a mix between a belief and a vision and a deep understanding of that. What I mean with systemic change is that we try to overcome the approach of fast fixes for particular very focused problems we face. We heard the problem statements here, and I couldn't agree more with what I've heard. But nevertheless, I guess we need to understand that, yes, we need to make sure that this demand gap, for example, in Africa is closed. But it's probably not the production only or ensuring the access only which requires then real progress. It's a very long-term perspective. And probably one way forward in getting to more a transformational shift is reconsider the measures the measures we measure performance of food systems. Often we have a very limited way of measuring performance in food systems which do not really represent the sustainability challenges we face. So we either have a over-focus on environmental aspects because we know the huge footprint of food systems, or we have an over-focus on, let's say, more the economic aspects. And unfortunately, we have often an under-focus on social aspects of the performance of food systems. And through this thinking, I believe I try to answer your question in a way. We need to change how we understand what does success mean. Because if we look at the ultimate aim, it's food security and nutrition. And that requires production, that requires stable markets, that requires stable policy environments, that requires a good connection between all these more economic policy frameworks with a health system, a sanitation system, and then we end up very fast in these 17 SDGs. So trying to strengthen the connection between the indicators of SDGs. We have, for example, a program in our university together with a private sector partner, and they urged us to use indicator 2.4.1 as a measure whether or not a project fits. But there we have a data lack. So we have first to understand how do we get the right data to answer these very holistic perspective of the SDGs. And this takes us a while, but I guess the food system is very close to getting to a systemic understanding because no sector is so closely embedded to the SDGs as the food systems. So that's a bit, sorry, it was far too long. But I'm an academic, sorry.
An academic who ignores the red countdown clock in front of him, but very good response. I think in the interest of time, let me come back to each one of the panel members for maybe just maybe a reaction to this question about maybe one thing that really stands out to you about in agri-food systems, an area that really is deserving of, to Martin's points, some additional attention that's needed. And maybe an area where young people, the youth, the generation that is coming next can have, I think, an important voice or an important role to play. Maybe Martin, we go to you.
Yeah, thank you. Coming back to this topic with food security on the example of Africa, we talked about, the established ones here in the auditorium. If you look at that, what we did, all of us that have been working for decades in this sector, is actually we have been failing, as simple as this. This whole import gap is getting bigger and bigger since the 60s. We have done not a good job. That requires, in terms of systemic change, that there is fresh mindset, something that we discussed early on coming in the system, that simply brings idea on the table that this established group is potentially not able to execute upon. So everything AI, digitalization, biotechnology, all these kind of things where probably this established group is not so savvy as the young generation needs to come on the forefront, and that needs to get executed. Otherwise, we're simply not capable of addressing these urgent fixes that are absolutely necessary to sort out food security systems that we're having on the globe.
Thank you very much. Sharon, over to you.
Yeah, basically that's, I would say 80% of the work that we do, trying to figure out how to change the system. And for me, we really need to build an infrastructure that looks holistically at the system, where it's not just linear, where not just yield production, ultra-processed foods that then, impacts the health of a gazillion people, which then has a cost, right? So, but that is not an easy solution, and we need an infrastructure where companies, the private sector can make money, because that's obviously the way the world works, while also doing good and have purpose, where you look at the social, you look at the financial, and you look at the environmental. So building that, to me, is the most important thing.
Great, thanks. Mario.
Well, I think that in agriculture, at least in coffee again, we really have to change many things. And so almost by definition, the young generation are the best fitted for that. Let me give you an example. The large majority of aid development and this type of activities, at a certain point, or not exclusively, have a farmer feel schooled to teach the people to do this and that, efficiency. We do the same, no, no complaint. But the problem is that, for example, in Africa, talking about coffee, the average piece of land of average grower is slightly more than 1 hectare. Now, the question is, even if you are the very best coffee grower in the world, the most efficient, whatever, everything you want, how can you live with 1 hectare? No way, no way. So if we think that a young person tomorrow will come to work in coffee for 1 hectare that eventually he got from his father, hoping that has no brother, or he killed the brothers, so he can maintain the land united, he cannot leave. So what does it mean? That we have to work in different conditions. We have to find ways to allow the aggregation of land or to aggregation of people, putting together not only as any normal cooperative, the product, okay, we sell together our chickens or tomatoes. No, we have to put together the land, which is slightly more complex from many point of view. So those are incredible changes, but for product like coffee, where you cannot basically have the way out of mechanization, because for technical reasons this is not possible in coffee, the only solution is really to go to disruptive changes, which of course are quite difficult to do.
Paolo will give you the last word.
Yeah, I will try to be short. I think agroforestry particularly requires time. And Mario explained quite well that farmers are aging. And then for farmers to really see the impact of agroforestry, well, there need to be a new generation stepping up and basically making sure that they can take up on the farming activities. But farming activities should become a way of having a sustainable living income. And for that, markets played a role, and voluntary carbon markets might play also a role. Probably younger farmers might not need to have an incentive to do agroforestry because this might be in their mindsets, but it doesn't necessarily neglect that they might bring finance required to indeed do that transition and making it better. So particularly in our case, just to give you an idea on why innovation is important, to make sure that these solutions really come to farmers, we started with pilot programs with 100 farmers, one in Colombia, for example. Now we are working with more than 374,000 smallholder farmers, around 1.2 hectares each, in the best case. And they are actually doing it. And they are receiving the incentives, and 80% of what we sell is given to them. And they are seeing that actually carbon credits are a promise that is not it has been always the promise that hasn't been delivered, now is becoming real. And now when they are seeing, okay, this might be real, this becomes a trend. And then the young generation might play a role to kind of ensure that these efforts that currently farmers are doing will last long.
Great, thank you so much. Please join me in thanking this very knowledgeable and maybe established panel of experts. It's been terrific to have each of you with us. Please, everyone, give them a round of applause. I did see a couple of hands raised, and I am so sorry that we weren't able to get to them, but perhaps as the colleagues are making their way back to their seats, which I'll go ahead and give you the opportunity to do when we conclude, maybe those of you who have questions can track them down and pose those questions. So with that, I think I get to turn the podium and the floor back over to Amanda and Abir to really close us out. Over to you two.
Thank you, Ms. Beth. What an insightful panel. Another round of applause to them. Yes, Ms. Sharon, I like the ecosystem of ecosystems. I will use that after this. So once again, thank you, Ms. Beth, for moderating this important discussion. And thank you once again to all of our panelists for demonstrating how the private sector, especially multinational corporations, can collaborate with youth, working hand in hand with them to transform our agri-food systems and achieve the SDGs. A special thank you also to our youth audience who asked such critical, bold, and engaging questions.
Absolutely. What a fascinating discussion. And for those of you who hadn't had the opportunity to ask questions, as Beth said, you can track the panelists and directly engage with them. I would like now to hand the floor to Mr. Alex Giordano to give us closing remarks. Mr. Alex, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, dear colleagues, friends, and fellow innovators. I'm truly grateful to be here in this very important panel, this roundtable, in these big events that really become one point of reference for world war about the future of the food system. And I have so many suggestions, so many ideas, and thanks a lot for this very important moment, this roundtable, because if we think the future of the food, you must think for real to take bridge, make bridge from youth action, science, innovation, and make bridge between private and public venues. We are living really in challenging times, but we have the opportunity in front of us to rethink and reshape how the agri-food system do better for the future. The discussion we have had during this roundtable have made clear that private sector can be a catalyst for concrete changes, not only focused on technological innovation, but in promoting sustainability and fostering social inclusion as well. You have your concrete experience. It's not only a mantra of some innovation guru, but look how concretely we can make this bridge, and all the contribution today have provided us with key insight, but I believe that we need to take a further step forward. We have discussed about digital transformation, more efficient value chain. We have heard something about how new technologies improve the sustainability of the food sector. However, it's becoming clear that the traditional innovation and the startup model that inspiring by the large financial corporation doesn't quite fit needs of agri-food ecosystem. It's not only a question of unicorns. It's like the traditional approach. Even the idea of fertile industrial revolution, I work in with technology, is no longer seems sufficient. It's time to adopt a more complex and systemic vision to talking about ecosystem. And unlike the common narrative around innovation, which often promotes I think that it's very dangerous that it's mainstream the equation that technologies has equal sustainability. Is not true. We need more and more. AI is the buzzword of the moment. Everywhere you turn, it's all we seems to hurry about, and it's we trust that AI can resolve all the problem, and not only in the future of food. But the topic of food is central, not just because it provides the physical nutrition that we all need, but because it serves us to true driver of change. In the food, we can find the key to addressing some of our most pressing global challenges, from climate change and food insecurity to social inequality. The food offers a unique lens through which we can govern complexity of this time, as it connects the environment, health, economy, society in profound ways. And so, today, we have listened these inspiring stories of startup innovating the agri-food system. This discussion have made one thing very clear and tangible. We can no longer afford to work in silos or isolated compartments. Now you tell it very, very well. This can no longer be just the mantra of a polished slide from an innovation guru. It's a real and urgent necessity for evolution. The future demands deep, meaningful collaboration between different actors. We need cooperation between the private and public sector, between small family business and the large corporation, and between innovative startup and the realms of scientific and technological research. But how we can achieve this collaboration? This is the question. Huh? Once again, we can turn to nature for inspiration, because nature can provide us with a method. The biodiversity model. It's simple, but it's hard too. Biodiversity teaches us that the strength of an ecosystem lies into ability to integrate diverse approach and perspective, fostering an harmonious coexistence among its various elements. In the same way, we must promote a model within the agri-food system where all actors, from small local business to multinational corporations, discover opportunities for cooperation rather than competition. Each component, and we have seen, has its unique role and function, but it's only by embracing, integrating this difference that we can build a resilient and really sustainable system. We must champion business models that are ethical, responsible, rooted in principles of social justice, and committed to the regeneration of our natural resource. So, very thanks for this roundtable, because all together, with the young students too, we are starting to build a new idea of innovation, an innovation that go very after as tips. I have this an idea of innovation that transcended the financial model of unicorns and the confines of precision agriculture technologies. While, so we call it the fourth industrial revolution, is merely brought together a series of technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, and more. But it hasn't fundamentally revolutionized by our approach. We need to move beyond 4.0 toward a system that fosters collaboration between different forms of intelligence and encourages us to rethink our relationship with nature, with our territories and our communities through the lens of innovation and technology. Because only by embracing this systemic vision can we effectively address the global challenge we face today, from climate crisis to social inequalities. The experience we have discussed today stands as a testament of this potential. And I'm closing. Our goal must be govern complexity rather than attempt to simplify it. The food system serves as a lens through which we can read and understand these intricate dynamics, providing us with a model to guide the future policy, not only in agri-food system, but in all the sector. This is the paradox. The model of the food suggest us a way to live with more harmonious coexistence between humans, between ecosystem and technologies too. It offers us an evolutionary escape route. Technology, especially artificial intelligence, should become enabler of this regenerative process, helping us make better, more informed, and fairer decisions. In conclusion, the future of the food system will not hinge on a single innovation or one company. No, we have seen. Instead, emerge from collective collaboration, a network of actors working together, each contributing in their unique roles to create a food system that is sustainable, fair, and resilient. So I really make this suggestion to embrace a food system 5.0. It's not an utopia, it's a necessity. So it's up to all of us, business, government, communities, and whole citizens to build this future together. So let's move forward. There is so much to be done all together. Thanks a lot.
Another round for Professor Alex Giordano. Thank you so much, Professor, for tying this whole event well summarized in your closing remarks. And there are some statements that were shared by Dr. Martin and Ms. Beckdahl established. And I will give the audience a glimpse of how established Professor Giordano is. So he is the Professor of Economics and Business Management at the Giustino Fortunato University and a Professor of Marketing and Digital Transformation at the Federico II University of Naples. And I trust that with all the wisdom that we've gained from the panel, from the keynote remarks, I would like to pass it on to Abir to give us our final word of the day.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, dear panelists and speakers, for all of your time, and thank you, dear audience, for attending physically and online. Last but not least, I would like to say thank you so much for the Youth Innovation team and the volunteers of the World Food Forum. Without you, this session would not be possible. Have a good evening and see you at the World Food Forum Private Sector Roundtable 2025. Thank you all. We can have time for a picture. Can have a picture together.
Recording stopped.